All right, today we are tackling a massive question. What is reality? I mean, really, what is it? We're going to break down this incredible and pretty radical new model that tries to describe everything, all of existence, with just 7 basic terms. So yeah, let's dive right in.
So let me start by asking you this. Just think about it for a second. What if everything you know, I'm talking about your mind, the physical world, matter, even time itself, what if all of it emerges from one single event? It's a wild thought, right? But that idea is the absolute heart of the model we're about to unpack.
And this is the key that unlocks the whole thing. The quote says, existence and knowing are the same event, not two things, one thing. You see, it totally challenges this super basic idea we all have, that there's the thing over there, and then there's us over here knowing about it. This model says, nope, it's all the same single event. Kind of mind-bending, right? Let's see how they make that work.
Okay, so first we have to start with the quest itself. This isn't a new question, right? For centuries, philosophers, scientists, you name it, they've all been on this epic search for the fundamental nature of existence. They're trying to figure out what are the ultimate building blocks of, well, everything.
But here's the thing. Before you can build something new that works, you've got to understand why the old blueprints failed. And the history of this search, it's really a story of some brilliant ideas that, just ultimately ran into a brick wall.
And this really lays out those brick walls perfectly. Look, if you start with the idea that matter is the most fundamental thing, well, you eventually hit the hard problem. You just can't explain how consciousness pops out of a bunch of atoms. Okay, so what if you try the other way? Mind first. The problem there is you can get stuck in solipsism, the idea that maybe, just maybe, only your mind is real. Yikes. And then there's dualism, the idea that mind and matter are two totally separate things. That sounds good, until you realize you can't explain the missing link. How on earth do they talk to each other? You see the problem? Every path led to a dead end.
So seeing all these failures led to this huge pivot, a real aha moment. The thought was, what if we're starting in the wrong place? Instead of starting with mind or matter, what if we could find the one single event that comes before both of them? The one phenomenon that everything else is built on.
And that event has a name. Registration. The definition is so simple it's almost poetic. It's the act of a difference making a difference. So what does that even mean? Okay, let's make it real. Imagine a single photon of light hitting a receptor in your eye. The photon arriving is a difference in the world, and it makes a difference to that receptor, right? It causes a chemical reaction, sends a signal. In that one tiny instantaneous moment, the model says the existence of that photon and the receptor knowing about the photon are the exact same event. They're not separate, they're one thing.
Okay, so once you have this core idea of registration, everything else just unfolds from it. The whole model is logically built out from that one concept into 7 irreducible building blocks. These are the absolute bare bones essentials you need to describe reality. No fat, no extra stuff, just these 7 primitives. All right, first up on our list of 7 is something called SFOA. I know, it sounds a little weird. It stands for Substrate Field of Awareness. That's a mouthful, so let's just use an analogy. Think of it as the ultimate blank canvas. It isn't actually anything, yet. It's just pure, infinite potential. It's the capacity to register any and every difference that could possibly exist.
So, if SFOA is our infinite blank canvas, what's the paint? Well, that's our second term, information. And get this, in this model, information is just differences. That's it. It's not ones and zeros, it's just hot versus cold. Light versus dark, on versus off. These are all just differences. The raw material of reality just waiting to be registered.
Okay, next we have awareness. And it's super important to get this right. This is not consciousness, thinking about yourself or feeling things. It's way more fundamental. If SFOA is the passive capacity to register a difference, awareness is the active ability to do it. It's literally the can in can register. It's the property that makes the whole process possible.
And this leads us to one of the big ones, reality. And here is where things get really interesting. In this model, reality isn't a thing, a noun. It's a process. It's a verb. So we don't exist in reality. Reality is the very act of registration. It's the constant, ongoing dance of differences making a difference, happening everywhere all at once.
So what about time? We tend to think of time as this river we're all floating down, right? A container for events. Well, this model says no. Time is what emerges from the process. It simply is the sequence of registrations,
One registration happens, then another, and that one after the other, that's what we call time.
Now for another huge one, matter. So that chair you're sitting in, the desk your computer is on, according to this model, it's not made of some fundamental stuff. Instead, it's what's called a stable registration attractor. Basically, it's a pattern of registrations that's so stable, so coherent, and repeats itself so reliably that we perceive it as a solid physical object. It's a pattern, not a substance.
And finally, what about us, you and me? What is consciousness? Well, it's defined as a high-sensitivity registration regime. All that means is that we, our brains, our bodies, are systems that have gotten really good at detecting incredibly complex patterns in that endless storm of registrations. At our core, we're just very advanced pattern detection machines.
And boom, here it is, the whole system on one page. You can really see how beautifully it all fits together. You start with the infinite potential of SFOA, and step by step you logically build up to the complex pattern detecting we call consciousness. It's a complete self-contained system. Nothing's missing.
So, what's the point of all this? What does it actually achieve? Well, the goal was to create what's called a minimum viable ontology. That's just a fancy way of saying what is the absolute simplest set of rules you need to describe reality without leaving anything out and without any leftover pieces that don't make sense. And the way this model was built was incredibly strict. I mean, they were ruthless. Every single term had to earn its place. You couldn't have any circular definitions. All the old assumptions we just take for granted, gone. That old false wall between mind and matter, torn down. And every single one of these 7 terms had to be absolutely fundamental. If you could define it using the other terms, it got cut.
And the result of being so strict? You get what's called a clean ontology. Think back to those old problems. Now there are no dualisms, no hidden ghosts in the machine to make things work. You don't get stuck in an endless loop of what came before that, and there's no extra metaphysical baggage you have to believe in. It's just the 7 tools you need to get the job done. Nothing more, nothing less.
Which brings us to the final and pretty bold conclusion. The claim here is that this is it. This is the minimum viable ontology, the simplest, most efficient, and most logical set of building blocks you need to describe existence itself.
So I'm going to leave you with a question to chew on. If this model is right, if your consciousness is just a high-sensitivity registration regime, then what are you registering right now in this very moment? The light from your screen making a difference to your eyes, the sound of my voice making a difference to your ears, the feeling of the chair you're sitting in. It all comes back to that one single fundamental event, a difference making a difference.